We've been at this for a long time now. For the past 7 years, I've been completing a different game every single week. Things started off simply, but I've tackled some of the toughest titles out there since the inception of the Completionist. But with almost 300 completed games behind me, it's clear that I never would have made it this far without my crew. Week after week, they put in blood, sweat, and tears to get the job done, and they keep me motivated to do the same. So as we finally crack that 1 million subscriber milestone, and I try to figure out what game to complete to celebrate, I know they'll always have my back. I think we should complete Final Fantasy X.
Oh my god.
just got
out of
It's
my
too big.
It's
It's too
ridiculous,
much.
dude.
Too big.
What are we doing?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a very special episode of The Completionist. We hit 1 million subscribers, and I am so excited to share that with you all at home. Today, we're going to complete one of my favorite games of all time, one that I wanted to do for a very special occasion. Today, we're going to complete Final Fantasy X. Let's begin. Yes! As you know, the Final Fantasy series is anything but final. It just won't stop growing and evolving, with 14 sequels, 2 of which have their own sequels, some with prequels, 4 movies, remakes, re-releases, ports, and even a cafe. To call this series final is no longer ironic. It's practically sarcasm at this point. And while each new iteration always features some improvements, the jump to Final Fantasy X was more like a massive leap for JRPGs everywhere. This wasn't just another Final Fantasy. This game dramatically expanded the definition of what a Final Fantasy could be. No more pre-rendered backgrounds. Now we've got fully 3D environments. The tried and true active battle system replaced with a unique Final Fantasy take on turn-based combat. Traditional leveling? Out. Sphere grids? In. And it was the first Final Fantasy with full-on voice acting. You can easily chalk all that up to it being the first Final Fantasy that took advantage of the PS2's hardware. But it's clear that there was also a conscious effort on part of the designers and developers to challenge themselves and push the series into bold new places. Final Fantasy X shattered sales records and became many people's new favorite Final Fantasy. I played tons of other Final Fantasies before this one, but 10 immediately became my new gold standard for JRPGs in general. And that's probably because I played through the entire game alongside my brother Jacques. We had a blast together, and after that, it became a new tradition for the two of us to sit down and complete each new Final Fantasy together. But we've both become so busy that we haven't had the time to do that in ages. But I'm gonna recapture a little bit of that nostalgia when I complete Final Fantasy X once more. But please believe me when I say that there is a ridiculous amount of stuff to complete in this game, especially since I'm taking on the remastered version for the PlayStation 4, which includes even more grindy quests and spongy bosses. Aside from the huge main storyline, there are buckets of side quests too, including an obligatory career in professional aquatic sports. It's Blitzball, Final Fantasy X's resident minigame, and completing the game will mean swimming my way to the very top of the league. That's going to be a lot of laps in the magically spherical pool. I'll also have to hunt, capture, and fight every single monster in the game multiple times via the monster arena. Not to mention all the extremely powerful bonus bosses that are gradually unlocked as I complete that zoological process. There's a lot of fighting in this one, and don't you even think we're close to done. I'm gonna have to find every single unique collectible in this game, including some artifacts that will allow me to translate an entire goddamn foreign language. As I become more fluent, I'll be able to understand the cryptic messages and strange people that periodically appear across its landscape. Point me towards, you guessed it, even more collectibles. And let's not forget that I have to max out each character far beyond the point of overkill via the sphere grid. And that grid is much bigger than I remember, since I'm technically completing an expanded international version of the game. The more I researched this version of Final Fantasy X, the more I realized how much more daunting it is than what I simply played through as a kid. But I've got my expanded TOVG family with me now, and we're gonna do this one together!
Right? It's too big of a game. It's just too big. Patrick, when Yuna got to that first Temple of Faith, did she give up on her very first cloister trial?
Honestly, I'm not sure. It's been a while.
And Brett, when Kamari Ronso got his horn broken, did he just pack it in?
I have no idea who that is. Is that somebody from the video game?
All right. Unlimited pizza until we get the job done.
All right, so
No, we don't.
I think we're gonna get going. She's like a boss.
15 seconds.
Final Fantasy X marked the first time the series exhibited the sheen and production value necessary to attract the mainstream spotlight. It's always been an insanely popular franchise, but the cinematic aesthetics of all of its subsequent big-budget sequels can be traced back to this spot. Some of this game's choices might seem dated or even embarrassing by today's standards, but back in the day, this was cutting edge, and I loved every minute of it. And I'm happy to say that a lot of that charm is still here. Our extremely long tale begins with our protagonist, who's officially known as Titus. Personally, I thought he was Titus. But since he is renameable, and because he looks exactly like early 90s rom-com darling Meg Ryan, that is what he should be referred to for the duration of this completion. By the way, shoutouts to Spoonie, who was the first one to come up with this Meg Ryan bit. So, Meg Ryan is a hot blitzball player in his hometown of Xanarkand. But all the aqua rugby and heavy metal in the world won't save him when a massive beast known as Sin attacks. Sin sucks Meg Ryan into a vortex, and when he awakes, he's inside some mysterious drowned ruins. He gets attacked by some monsters, but is saved by some gaudy treasure divers who inform him that he's in a world called Spira, and that Xanarkand was destroyed 1,000 years ago. But before Meg Ryan can even come to grips with these time travel shenanigans, Sin pops up again and throws Meg Ryan overboard into yet another vortex. This time, he washes up on the beaches of Besaid. He impresses the locals so much with his ancient blitzball skills that they agree to explain Sin's deal to him. It's essentially an immortal, unstoppable force of nature that pops up from time to murder thousands of people and decimate whole cities. He's basically the devil for the extremely devout denizens of Spira. Sin can be temporarily stopped when a chosen summoner goes on a holy pilgrimage throughout the land of Spira. Essentially, the summoner and their party of guardian bodyguards do a super religious world tour, stopping at each temple of faith to collect powerful Aeon spirits along the way, who are tied to a powerful deity known as Yevon. If a summoner does that, they can summon the final Aeon, which can then put Sin down long enough for the people of Spira to catch their breath. It's almost like a Pokemon journey with a heavy helping of religious overtones. And this time, it's a shy, young Yuna's turn to carry the burden as summoner, along with her eclectic group of guardians. There's Waka, the gregarious islander who sounds a little bit like Bender, Lulu, the brooding black mage beset by belt buckles, and Kamari Ronso, who is Catman. Oh, and later on, they're joined by the one-eyed, one-armed Orin and Riku, who fulfills your bubbly girl quota. Meg Ryan agrees to travel along with them on the way to some blitzball tournament. But come on, you know he's going to be a guardian. It doesn't even take that long. Together, they set off to finish the pilgrimage, defeat Sin, earn another desperately needed calm period for Spira, and get Meg Ryan back home to the early 90s. The first thing one might notice about this game's premise is how delightfully blasphemous it is. The concepts of belief, sin, and punishment are explored in ways that only a JRPG can. Good stuff. But the next thing that strikes me about this game's narrative is how many mature themes it tackles. We're talking mature in both the extreme violence kind of way and the complex interpersonal relationships kind of way. This game gets kind of dark, with Sin wiping out droves of people in each attack. Final Fantasy X is racking up Alderaan body counts here. Things seem all the more sinister when the game explains that all of those souls that aren't guided to the other side by the summoner eventually become the very same monsters that you fight throughout the game. That's messed up. And then you've got stuff like the surprisingly genuine and believable romance between Yuna and Meg Ryan. You've also got Meg Ryan's strained relationship with his long-lost father, and the overarching themes of racism with the seldom understood Albed people. The allegory may run thick in this game, but to a kid or someone who's in the mood for some heavy metaphor, Final Fantasy X hits the spot. The storytelling is made all the more immersive by the visuals, which were impressive back in the day, and have only gotten better thanks to the re-release. Spira seems more real than every other Final Fantasy world before it, due to its several locales all being fully rendered in 3D. And some of these cutscenes are majestic as f***. But what's really impressive is the decision to not focus the game's design on Western or traditional medieval fantasy. This franchise had been drawing from that well for a long time, but Final Fantasy X is decidedly influenced by South Pacific and East Asian cultures. It's refreshing as hell and gives the game a rock-solid visual identity. Crystal clear waters and slightly brown people praising a deity? Gotta be Final Fantasy X. The soundtrack is absolutely on point, and it includes some of the most memorable tracks in the entire Final Fantasy catalog. This game kind of represented composer Nobuo Uematsu's passing of the torch to his sound team, but you would never be able to tell that based on the quality of the soundtrack. And then there's the big issue with the voice acting, which holds a very special place in my heart. It was the first time I heard Final Fantasy characters speak. I know the voice acting in this game has become something of a joke, but let's actually break things down. This first specimen is this scene by the pool in Macalania. It's got a reputation for being cheesy, but you know who the real culprit is here? Localization. Having to sync English dubbing to mouth movements that are clearly intended for the original Japanese version is tough. And that was their intent, to minimize all of the backlash with syncing. But the romance of this scene is clear and undeniable, and that's what's most important. This scene is, in my humble opinion, extremely heartfelt, man. And then there's the infamous laughing scene, which many cite as the reason they don't play JRPGs. Many claim that this scene suffers from terrible voice acting and horrible direction. It isn't perfect or anything, but it's a shame when things get prejudged, especially when taken out of context. But when you actually sit down and play this game, it becomes clear that this scene was designed to be awkward. These two people are about to go on what is basically a suicide mission to save the world. This is a scene about two people forcing themselves to laugh when neither of them genuinely feels like it. It feels forced because they're literally forcing themselves, dreading the path before them. And that's a big part of what makes Final Fantasy X so wonderful. On paper, it can be written off as just yet another JRPG. But when you give it a fair chance and have a little bit of patience, this game is revealed as uniquely thoughtful and complex, with great presentation and some interesting themes throughout. The Final Fantasy X series was executive producer and father of Final Fantasy Hironobu Sakaguchi's swan song, and the passion that he had for the entire franchise can be felt in this game. But I do suppose that the laughing scene is still good for a laugh if you need one. Okay, be forewarned. If you want a particular item or want access to a specific side quest in Final Fantasy X, you might have to put in a lot more work than you realize. The core mechanics are classic Final Fantasy at their absolute best, but there are plenty of spectacular elements in this game locked behind other elements, which in turn can only be accessed by completing other elements. The whole game is tied up into a big, beautiful Japanese knot that feels great to untie. Like most other JRPGs, players will travel to new places, do some random battling, level themselves up, tackle a boss or two, and then start that process all over again. But Final Fantasy X has its own idiosyncrasies to set it apart, like the conditional turn-based battle system, which seems like regular old turn-based fighting at a glance. But depending on the fighters, their stats, and the actions they take, their positions in the action queue will shift around. For example, your character's turn might come back faster if you opt to cast Fire instead of Fire-Aga. Instead of having to hurriedly scroll through your menu to find the ultimate in time, you can take all the time in the world to plan your next step. And being able to actually see the list of who gets to pull off their move next allows players to relax a bit while strategizing. Each Guardian plays a different role in combat, with Meg Ryan being the most well-rounded and controlling the flow of battle with combat tricks like haste and slow spells. Yuna fills the support role, focusing on healing spells and summoning her giant Aeons to fight on your behalf. Lulu hands out elemental damages like candy. Wakka's got the status effects on lock. Auron deals big boy damage and breaks enemy armor pieces and such. And Riku is your thief and item user. Oh, and Kamari Ronzo is Catman. What sets us aside from other Final Fantasies is that you can swap party members in battle at any given moment. This allows for all kinds of switch-ups that need to take place, giving you all the options to counterattack accordingly. Each character's uniqueness shines through even more with their overdrives, extremely powerful attacks that they can only use when their overdrive meter is full, and each character learns new overdrives in different ways. For example, Meg Ryan will learn new overdrive attacks after enough times using his current available overdrives. Wakka gets an upgrade when he wins a Blitzball tournament, and Kamari has to steal new overdrives from monsters. What's even more unique is that you can change how overdrive meter is accumulated with different overdrive statuses. There are ones that trigger every time you attack an enemy, every time your friends get hurt, or even just by spending time alone like an introvert. Manipulating these overdrive meters is the key to winning some of the more complicated fights in the late game. Fight long enough and you'll be able to level up via the sphere grid. Instead of experience points leading to blanket stat buffs, the player is given even more control via this intimidating expanse of nodes. There's a sphere for just about everything, and that's an excellent way to make character progress more tangible. It felt like almost every time I finished a fight, I was heading back to the sphere grid to lay down some more boosts, which only made me want to fight more. It's like how they train chickens to play tic-tac-toe. Keep the treats coming and I'll keep pecking away. But you can only get so buff via leveling. Sometimes you need some hardware to get the job done, and the baddest weapons in all of Final Fantasy X are undoubtedly the celestial weapons. Each character has their own, and they have to be crafted from lower quality weapons, crests, and sigils hidden throughout Spira. The issue is that these collectibles are usually tied to lengthy side missions and grueling battles, making the quest for the celestial weapons feel like an Easter egg hunt. Except instead of eggs, they're pieces of a bazooka. So if you intend to complete this game and go for those celestial weapons, prepare for some of the most ridiculous tear-inducing side quests of your life. Be ready to dodge 200 lightning bolts in a row. Expect to be participating in some maddening chocobo races. And not riding chocobos, mind you. That's as fun as always. But actually racing on a chocobo? You might as well grab some Fireball whiskey because your chocobo handles like it's had far too much to drink. Add in a harsh time limit and some unavoidable impeding seagulls, and it's a recipe sure to make you hate your once favorite balls of golden fluff. Ugh. And then there's the Blitzball minigame, which is yet another link into the great side quest chain. It may look action-packed to spectators, but in reality, it mostly plays itself. When you've got the ball, you can choose between a few actions, but ultimately, you're just hoping that your team's stats outweigh your opponent's. Blitzball may boil down to one set of numbers fighting against another set of numbers, but it's actually pretty fun as a palate cleanser for the main game. Your team's stats progress the more you play, and you can even recruit unassuming NPCs as new members. My favorite player in the game is Riku's brother. His name is Brother. You can max out your Blitzball team team stats, but there's no point since every time you claim your prize for dominating a league or tournament, you need to reset your team stats to have new potential prizes pop up. We need those prizes for other completion criteria, so maxing out the player stats is a no-go. But by the time you claim all the necessary rewards anyways, you'll never want to play water squash again. One of the cooler parallels to different cultures and acceptance of said culture is the Albed primers. Throughout the group's journey, you encounter a ton of Albed people, and you can almost never understand whatever they are saying. Hailed as one of the only few missables in the game, you can collect the Albed primers that will translate their language for you. And if you're the kind of person that wants to really experience all the language bending from the beginning, you can start a new game and just load your Albed primer stats from previous game saves. So that way, you can really enjoy everything. There's just so much to complete in this freaking game, especially once you enter the late game, like the appropriately named Omega Dungeon, which is chock full of monsters just itching to one-shot your party at first. And then there's the 3 secret Aeons, an optional set of additional powerful Pokemon for you to collect. Except we're completing this thing, so optional becomes get to it. And if you still haven't had enough battling, you can literally create new bosses to fight at the Monster Arena. If you kill one type of a monster a total of 10 times throughout the game, you can fight a special variant of that monster as much as you'd like in the Monster Arena. These special baddies are not only brutal as hell, but defeating them will also reward players with high-level gear that's necessary for completion. I had to unlock every single monster within the arena, which means that I killed every single monster in the game 10 times, plus their special variants, plus the Monster Arena exclusive bosses that are unlocked along the way, including Nemesis, the ultimate Monster Arena boss, and what an asshole he is. Now, my name is whispered in fear amongst the monsters of Spira. Get sent, bitches! And all that fighting definitely helped with the impossible task of maxing out every character's sphere grid. Let me make something clear. Maxing out the grid is a ridiculous thing to even attempt. And even after killing all those monsters, I was nowhere near close to having it done. Trying to do so through natural means would take hundreds and hundreds of hours. But thankfully, I had an alternative method to speed things up. So check this shit out. After you unlock a baddie known as One-Eyed in the Monster Arena, grind battles out against him until he drops a weapon with a triple AP ability and at least 2 customization slots for all of your characters. Then you can customize these weapons with the Overdrive AP conversion ability and the triple Overdrive ability, which you can create with items which can be obtained via the Monster Arena. Equip that weapon and shift the wielder into Comrade Overdrive mode. Congratulations, you're now ready to convert Overdrive meter into pure AP. After that, all it takes is picking a fight with a creature known as Don Tonberry, who will attack your characters upon receiving a hit for a total of 99,999 damage. But the damage is scaled upon total enemies defeated for that specific character who does the attacking. That damage then gets converted into tons of overdrive, which then gets dumped into AP, which is the stuff you need to start making dents in that bitch of a sphere grid. This method still takes hours, but it beats joining the AARP while grinding it out normally. But even with that method, fully maxing out the grid is the longest, most grueling task you can take on in this game. Seriously, you have to activate every node on the sphere grid, including the empties, in order to ensure that you have the maximum of every stat for all of your characters, which is 255. You have to create specific stat nodes for all the stat categories. Now, this is not that hard to do for all the stats, except for one, the luck stat. To get the luck node, you need to fight a pretty gruesomely long fight in the Monster Arena, no less than 65 times to acquire said nodes. But here's the kicker, you also need the corresponding sphere activator, which in comparison with all the other stat spheres, you can purchase or bribe or steal from monsters, except for luck. You'll have to fight another specific monster from the Monster Arena hundreds of times, because you have to remember, folks, you're maxing out every character. This monster only drops 2 nodes at a time upon overkill, which means you'll have to acquire about 400 plus of these sphere activators. Oh, you thought all of this was a walk in the park, son? Hell no. We are Legion. We are Completionist. Maxing out the sphere grid is a requirement if you want to complete Final Fantasy X, thanks to the achievements tied to it. But you're gonna need all of those stats and buffs anyways if you want to take on the game's biggest, baddest bosses of all, the Dark Aeons. They're extremely tough, evil doppelgangers of all of the normal Aeons, and they will stomp your ass out. Their HP alone starts at 800,000 and keeps climbing well past 10 million. Now this is my jam, taking on these giant bastards with bastard stomping boots. These boss battles are intricate and diverse, requiring an extensive knowledge of the game and some old-fashioned trial and error. But the baddest one of all, and the hardest enemy in the entire game, would be Penance. With a whopping 12 million HP and stats maxed out to the brim, this guy is here to check if you've mastered the game. This fight, no will take you 45 minutes to conquer, and it requires an insane understanding of how to take it down. Penance has a left and right arm that have their own movesets and stats that ultimately require you to kill the arms in a very specific pattern. And if you don't, the boss will one-shot you. This is very easy to mess up considering the precision. Imagine getting to minute 44 of this fight and you got to start all over because you got too comfortable. Now, the alternate easy way cheese path of this is to summon the Aeon Yojimbo and bribe him to kill the boss, but that's not fun. There's something so rewarding about conquering this son of a bitch a la natural. Haha, yeah, that's the good stuff. Final Fantasy X is a game of extremes. You can stick to the main storyline, but then you'll probably miss out on some of the coolest, most satisfying stuff the game has to offer. You can choose to pursue some side quests, but due to how interconnected they are, some side quests might sneakily turn into all side quests. For us completionists, Final Fantasy X may be a colossal monster, but it's surmountable with some time and patience, and lots of fighting. Some blind luck, and maybe a strategy guide. My brain, oh my god, my brain. I've been playing this game for so long that I have an X permanently imprinted on my thumb, and that's because this is the type of game where the majority of it is unlocked as you play. It's understandable that there aren't any real rewards for getting everything done in the game. Am I disappointed? A little bit. To have nothing waiting for the player after completing the sphere grid is a travesty and a crime. But I can't fault Final Fantasy X too much because of how much fun it was along the way. I'm just as burned out as you'd expect after spending all those hours completing it. But this game will always be special to me, and I know that I'll pick it back up one day again. When I completed Final Fantasy X, there were 5 deaths, 1,020 monsters captured for the monster arena. Hold on, let's do some math here. 828 spheres filled in per character times 7, that's 5,796 spheres filled in for max stats, abilities, and everything for all characters. Yeesh. 26 Albed primers collected, 160 hours of total playtime, and one fantastic team, for which without I would not have been able to complete any of the games that you see here on this channel today. One of the things I love the most about Final Fantasy X is how it induces feelings of teamwork and camaraderie. Going through an incredible journey through Spira with my party of Guardians felt a lot like the weekly missions we take here on at That One Video Gamer and the Completionist. In both instances, I had someone to rely on as my voice of reason. Someone I can fall back onto to support me. Someone who will always get the job done no matter what. A person who I can call on in my time of need. Someone who's fiercely loyal. And someone who I can always count on to bring in some energy and a few laughs. Just like Yuna, I've got a very dumb and hard job to do. And for some reason, there are tons of people out there who are inexplicably compelled to help and support me. And just like Meg Ryan, all of you at home showed up out of nowhere. You showed me insane amounts of support and appreciation and have made this entire journey possible. And over the course of that journey, I have fallen time and time again. But at the end of the day, it's all of you at home who pick me back up again. Thank you all so much for 1 million subscribers. And thank you for all of those memories along the way. Final Fantasy X is still one of the greatest games ever made. Rolling through the campaign was just as exhilarating as it was the very first time when I was a kid. The music is still etched into my mind, and the romance, albeit cheesy, is one of my favorites ever. When the game is giving me what I want, which is more bosses and more ways to challenge my Final Fantasy acumen, then I am in heaven. Regrettably though, a good portion of the minigames aren't the test of skill that I was really looking for, and more of a test of patience. Couple that with a mind-numbing sphere grid task, and I can't say I was having a ball the entire time. But it begs the question, what grade would I have given it if those aspects were removed? I don't think we really ever know, but honestly, and I hope all of you at home realize this and take away from all the videos we've made here on this channel. At the end of the day, the ratings don't mean much. The ratings mean nothing to me. They mean a lot to a lot of people, but I actually don't care, because to me, my experience is going to be different than yours, than your friends, than your friends' friends, than your girlfriend, your brother, your significant other, whatever. It doesn't truly matter. But what does really matter is the experience you had along the way. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!
So before I tell you guys to do the dumb things that, you're supposed to do on YouTube in order to stay hip and up with the times, this is the part of the video where I genuinely stop and say thank you. There's so many people to thank, and I feel like if I did thank everyone in the world, that this video would be another 30 minutes longer, and God knows you guys know my videos are way too long as it is, so I'll try and keep it short, simple, and sweet as best I can. I want to say thank you to my team, Fraser and Michael, Ted, Chris, Alex, Bradley, Tom, Ted, the artists who work on the show every week, Sean and Wyatt, and Carlos. Carlos has been with me since the very first episode of the show, many, many years ago. I want to thank my girlfriend Amanda, who has not only been a driving force in the merch and all the cool art stuff you've seen and the aesthetic we've changed over the years, but she's just been such a support beam in my life, and without her, I would not be here today the way that I am and focused as I am, and I want to provide her the best life that I can, and I feel like I'm doing an okay job so far. I want to say thank you to my brother, who has been watching all the business like a hawk for me, as I've just been playing games non-stop since the beginning. A big thank you to my dad, who thought that this would not work, but always pushed me in a way that was to encourage me to make it work. He always was very doubtful that this would be a thing, and when he finally saw it take off, it really surprised him in a way that he didn't expect, and that's been one of the coolest surprises I've had in this entire journey so far. I want to give a special thank you to Pat. I know I said his name earlier, Patrick Stingland, who has been the backbone of the show since our old editor Mark left. He's been an incredible guy who comes into work every day and goes, how can we make this bigger and better? I'm very grateful for you, Pat. I want to give a big thank you to the writers of The Completionist. We have Brett Bayonne, who is our lead writer. Really, The Completionist has kind of become his brainchild now, and I've really just kind of been the one that's been completing the games and voicing my opinions, but he's the one that has fleshed out our schedule in terms of what games we're playing and who's writing what scripts. With that said, we have an awesome writing team. I'm so glad to work with Taylor, with Eric, and Cameron, and Jeremy, and David. You guys have been such a blast to have around the office and to help us make this show. And I can tell that we're going to keep doing this for quite some time. So thank you guys for all your support. I want to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon folks for both Beard Bros and Completionist for all of the support they've given us. They've been through the apocalypse and beyond. They have been supporting us through hell and high water. That's the term, right? And through the thick of it. And I can't show them how much respect I have for them. Scott Rux, thank you for still being with us and still believing in what we're doing today. There are a lot of YouTubers I want to thank, and so I'm going to try and keep that that list short, but I want to try and keep it focused. I want to give a big thank you to Jesse Cox, Dodger, Octo, Strippin, Sohinki Lasercorn, Pam, Amy, and Tyler for their support being here in the office. You know, they really encouraged me to start this community of people in this building, and it's just been getting bigger and bigger. And you know, 7 years ago, I was a fan of almost all of them, sitting there dreaming, what if I was a YouTuber? What if I was their friend? And here I am. And it's truly an honor to know these people and work with them as much as I do. A big thank you to Davis from the Warp Zone, and really the Warp Zone in general. Michael Davis has been such a good friend of my life, and he's been such a great supporter. And he believed in me when no one would, and it's been great to have him around. I want to give a big thank you to Matt Pat, who's always been, with his expertise and support has been next level. And I want to thank all of the Normal Boots guys, specifically Satchel, for really making the show look as cool. Him and Javed, man, they do the assets every year, and they just keep making it cooler and cooler. I'm pretty sure that next year, the Completionist is going to be like an anime. I have no idea anymore. But Javed and Satchel, thank you for the cool, kick-ass things you do. It's so cool to work with you guys and know you guys. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to 3 specific YouTubers who gave me all of this, who for the longest time I thought that I was an imposter who did not belong in the YouTube space. I really thought that I didn't belong here, and I was struggling to make it work and feel like I mattered and feel like I really was important to everything that I do here on YouTube. And those 3 people are Peanut Butter Gamer, Jontron, and Ego Raptor. Those 3 guys, I've known John since we were in high school, and he introduced me to Aaron and to Austin, and I made a video on Mega Man X, and they gave me you guys. And without them, I wouldn't be here, and without you guys, I wouldn't be here. So we got just 2 big final thank yous left. One big thank you to the original TOVG crew, who's been with me since the beginning. More specifically, Alex Fossiani. Thank you, brother, for continuing to believe and support everything that I'm doing, and I will always have your back. And the last one is to my mom, who has always secretly looked out for me and always wanted me to be famous, I guess. That was something that she always dreamed about when she was alive, was that I want my son to be famous. And so I think I did that. I think I'm kind of famous now, so I'm proud of me, Mom. Love you. Thank you for being here for this long ass part of the video. If you're still here, thank you. I don't know, like this, comment, subscribe. Tell me why you hate my guts. Tell me why you love me. I don't care. Whatever you want to say. The fact that you're here talking and being here with me is more than enough. So thank you guys very much, and I'll see you next week for another brand new episode of The Completionist. Yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you for 1 million subscribers! Where do we go from here? Another million just seems dumb. 10 million seems too far away. I'm gonna be like 50 when we hit 10 million subscribers. I don't want to think about that. I look 50. Look at this. Look at this. It's all gray. Hell, we should all be black. You all forget about it. Bye, guys.